Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Layla and I am going to go over the books that I read in February. I only read 4. I mean, technically I finished 3 in February, but I finished one on March 1st. So I was like, we're going to squeeze that into February because yeah, that's fine. It was an okay reading month. I was a little bit bummed that one book took me so long to read. Like at this point, I read usually a book per week or at least within like a week and a half. But this one took me the bulk of February. I think it was like 15, 20. It was like at least 2 weeks. And that would be A Court of Mist and Fury. So this is what I started the month of February with. And this is the second book following A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is over 600 pages, but I just thought I would be able to like fly through it for whatever reason. I thought it was going to be so good that I wouldn't want to put it down. But I felt like this book wasn't, I don't know, I feel horrible saying this because so many people love these books and that's why I was so excited for these. But this was not as good as I was expecting, just like with A Court of Thorns and Roses. They are good books. This was a good book. There were parts of it that I was really engaged with and I could see things really well, but there is just a lot of slower parts. It's kind of like a slow build, or I think it's the way that Sarah J. Maas writes, where she explains a lot of things and those are going to serve a purpose later. I just prefer books that are a little bit more fast-paced, but I mean, I understand why people really enjoy these books. It is good. It is well written. I do like the characters. I like Farah. I like Rysand, or however you say his name. I love what ends up happening throughout a lot of this. There's some bad parts, but then there's some like really good parts. And I'm like, yeah, finally. You know what's crazy is, honestly, I thought a part of this was in the first book. There's definitely just some blurred lines there. Like, oh, that was in this book. It's just so long that it feels like I read those parts from a different world, like a different time. But now that I'm looking at it, that was in this book. So I don't want to go into too much detail of what this is about because I feel like at this, like once you're into a series, like you can't talk about it too much because then it's going to give away the first book, you know, or kind of. Would I still recommend this so far? I would say yes. Like I am going to continue reading the series. I think it is a good book overall. As far as a rating goes, I think this would probably be like a 3.75, maybe a 4, but I'm going to say with the 3.75. Because it was so long though, I was finding myself like just wanting to finish it. Like, come on, is this done yet? You know, or I almost started reading another book and like picking up a different book while I was reading this because I just started feeling impatient. And that's why after this book, I did not pick up the next one straight away. I actually still haven't started it because the third book in the series is even longer. I think it's like over 700 pages. So I know that that's going to take up several weeks of my time. So I wanted to like just kind of have a clean slate with other genres. So after that one, I decided to go to a thriller, The Housemaid's Secret. I did read The Housemaids last month and really enjoyed that book. This is by Frida McFadden. So this is the second book. And yes, you will want to read The Housemaid first before reading this one. They are not standalones, I would not say. The first one was definitely better. It was just so fun. Like I said in that, when I talked about it, I finished it within like 24 hours. This one took me a few days, maybe 3 or 4, so still not too bad. With the first one, I felt like I just needed to keep reading it, but this one I didn't feel that way. It was still really good and entertaining, just not as good as the first one. So I would probably give this 4 stars and overall highly recommend these 2 books. If you're looking for something fast-paced and interesting and just fun, it's definitely very unrealistic. You kind of just can't think about it. Like these things would not happen and she makes some very poor decisions. With this one, again, I feel like I can't talk about books in a series without giving away the first one, but with this one, she ends up working for a couple that is like living in a penthouse. It's a really fancy house and it's like not even dirty. But she's like, okay, they're paying me well and blah, blah, blah. The woman at this place, though, is really weird. Like, she just stays locked up in her room. And then one day she ends up seeing this woman and she's like shocked by what she sees. And Millie, the main character, the housemaid, she wants to help this woman. So that's what she starts doing. But then there are these major twists and she finds herself in a bad situation. And it's just like, it's kind of frustrating because you're like, you know the story. And there's another book that I read this month that is kind of like this. And it's like, no, gee, that's not what happened, you know? Like, that is such a frustrating feeling in a book where it's like, you know the real side of it, but the police and the detectives and stuff, they are thinking something else. And I really liked how this one ended. Like, there was a part in it that I was like, oh, that was kind of a surprise. So definitely a good book. Both of these highly recommend. After that, I read Carrie Soto is Back. I have heard such good things about this book, y'all. And I don't know. Y'all, I am definitely the type of person who, once one person recommends it or raves about it, I will read it, you know? And that's fine. I'm open to all sorts of books for the most part. And this is by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I really like her books. I've read quite a few of them in the past, but those have always been like heavy on the romance side of things or kind of sad. And I haven't heard just one person talk great things about this book. I've heard many people rave about it, and I don't know what it was. I don't see it. Sorry. This one gets like a 2.5 from me. Maybe just a 2. I'll stay with the 2.5, but that means I didn't really like it. I was like 50 pages in and I was like, I should just DNF this. Like, I don't think I want to keep going. And I was like, just keep going, give it a chance. I was like 100 pages in. I, again, was like, I don't think I want to finish this. And then I was 200 pages in and same thing. Like, I just kept forcing, I was like, this has to get better. So many people say great things about this book, like it has to get better. And there were parts that were good, like toward the end, I did like some of the ending stuff. I liked the romantic part of it. That there's not that much in it. But this was literally, I remember people saying like, oh, I'm not a big tennis person or I'm not a big sport person, but this is still such a good book. And this is so tennis heavy. Like, literally, it's reading a game. Instead of watching a tennis match, you're literally reading what is happening in these tennis matches just over and over and over. And let me explain what this is about. So Carrie, she is a tennis player. Ever since she was a young child, her father wanted her to be a tennis player and like coached her and helped her with all of that. And he basically told her like, you will be the #1 champion. You are the best tennis player in the world. And the way that he raised her to think like that, like, really made her, in my opinion, a spoiled, entitled brat. Like, I found her so annoying. Like, if she didn't win, she would have this major hissy fit. She also isn't, like, a really friendly player. Like, when you think of sports players, I'm not into sports like that, but if you think of some of them, they're like super friendly, or even if they lose, like they still have a good attitude about it and they're happy for their opponent. She is not like that. She is very like cutthroat. They call her the B word pretty frequently. I think, what do they call her? The axe something or other? The battle axe, that's what they call her. Because she's just not very friendly to anybody, to the news reporters, to her opponents, to anybody in her life. Like, she has no friends, no significant other, and she ends up like winning a bunch of games. And then she ends up retiring by like 30 something. But then at the age of 37, she wants to come back to the game, and she wants to, like, because somebody beat her record. So she's crying about this, that somebody beat her record. So she wants to come back and make it up at the old age of 37, because that is quite old for a tennis player, I guess. So yeah, she comes back, plays the tournaments, and there is some romance in here, but yeah, I didn't find it that good. Definitely not a book I would recommend, not a book that I would ever read again. I found her pretty annoying. Like, I still, even toward the end of it, I didn't really like her that much. Like, she just didn't seem like a good person or somebody that I would want to be friends with, you know? I think some of the sports stuff was interesting. That's really it. That's all I have to say. Then the final book would be Stillhouse Lake, which, like I said, I did finish this on March 1st, but I'm going to say that I finished in February. This is by Rachel Kane. I forgot why I got this book. I think it was on sale on Amazon, like maybe $7 or something, and it had pretty good reviews. It looked interesting, the storyline of it. So this is about a woman who, she comes home to her house and somebody has crashed into her house, like a drunk driver. and they start arresting her. Like, she's literally coming home with her children in the back, but they start arresting her, and she's like, what is happening? There must be some sort of mistake. But then she sees the house, and there is a dead body. I won't go into details because you could read it in the book. And she starts screaming, starts freaking out, and then she finds out that her husband is a serial killer, and he has killed multiple women just right under her nose, and she had no idea. Well, because of that, you know, she has to go to, they think she is part of it as well. But after that, she gets acquitted. She was found not guilty, like she was not helping her husband to murder these women. But her and her children have to keep making new identities because people keep finding her. There's these crazy internet people. I don't know if this happens in real life. Like, are there people, I'm sure there are, but I don't know if it's this extreme. That's awful if it is. But basically these internet people who get like obsessed with these cases try to find, they think she was still involved with it, even though she was found to be not guilty. They think she was involved with it, so they want to kill her. They threaten her and her family. People can find her. They put her address on the internet. They'll like vandalize their home and stuff like that. So she keeps having to run and relocate her and her children's life. Then the bulk of the story takes place at Stillhouse Lake. They have a house there, and ends up being really nice, actually. Like, she starts to enjoy living there, and like meets a few people, starts befriending some of the neighbors and stuff, until dead bodies start floating up in that lake. And now it looks like she's doing it. Like, they start questioning her, like, hey, this is very similar to how your husband killed women, and it looks like you could be doing, you know, you're doing the same thing. This is another book where it's like, you know the truth, like as the reader, you know the truth, or at least you think you do. So it was very frustrating to see like the police and the detectives against her. And I really didn't know where this was gonna go, like who was killing and what was happening. I had some guesses, but those guesses were wrong. And then the author makes you think it's somebody else because the main character, she's like, oh, it's probably this person because this, and it starts to make sense. I'm like, oh, that is that person. But each time I was wrong, and then toward the end, you obviously find out the truth. So I thought this was really fun read. I finished it within like 3 days, and there were some parts that were slow in it, like in the middle, but toward the end, I really just wanted to know who it was and what was going to happen. There were a couple of twists in this that I did find pretty exciting. I think the ending was kind of disappointing, like the twist, who like the whole, what ended up happening was a little bit disappointing. Like, I think it could have been a bit spicier, for lack of a better word. Not spicy in that way, but just like more, I wanted it to be more shocking, and I would say it wasn't. But this did end on a cliffhanger because I believe this goes into more books in the series. I think there's maybe like 6 of them. So I'll definitely have to pick those up because I did enjoy this. I would recommend it. I would say this is like a 4.25 out of 5. And it wasn't too graphic either, so I appreciated that. Like, there was still scary parts in it. I mean, it's not anything like super clean. You're still gonna hear about a little bit of description of how the bodies were found, like dead bodies, and definitely like look up the trigger warnings, but it wasn't anything super descriptive, so I was glad for that. And I did like the characters in this, and I'm hoping to like see this story continue in the next ones. So that was everything for February. I am currently reading a romance, and maybe after that I'll pick up another thriller, but then I do need to continue and finish the ACOTAR series. So I don't know how many books I'll be able to finish in March, but I do want to try and finish the 3rd book faster than I finished this one. Let me know if y'all have read any of these. Otherwise, please let me know what you're reading or if you have any good book recs. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.